There's a clear reason this clip of Alex Phillips is spreading so fast. It isn't because it's gentle, carefully balanced, or meant to make everyone feel at ease. It's going viral because it voices something that Britain's political leaders, media figures, and cultural elites have tried to ignore and silence for years. This is not a speech rooted in hate. It's a speech about being left behind. And once you listen to it, it becomes obvious why so many people feel that this country no longer feels like it belongs to them.
Once upon a time, we respected the backbone of our society. Our brave men went to the trenches. They mended stuff and made stuff. They joined the army. They worked in mines. They manned production lines. They drove lorries. They didn't make much money, but they made enough. And they'd be the first to turn out to carry your bag, offer a pint, defend the nation. They knew your name. They helped you with stuff around the house, and they laughed the loudest, and they made the sort of jokes that were so close to the bone, our sides split. But we gave their jobs away. We cut the army. We never replaced heavy industry, and where there were still jobs, we gave them to other men from other countries because they cost less. So instead, we gave our men benefits. We took their dignity and their ability to provide for their families and replaced it with a handout. We robbed them of all opportunity and also robbed opportunity from their kids too. Their kids who now have kids of their own. We told them they can't make their jokes anymore, not even for light relief. We told them that everything they were once loved for, and indeed that they loved, was now considered thick, racist, and out of touch. Wake up, we yelled. Get with the programme. Get woke, you Neanderthal. You've had it your way for far too long and you messed it up. It's only right that you are now punished. Your relatives enslaved us. You're a patriarchal beast. You fragile, overprivileged moron. When they now turn on the television, they don't see people like them. The songs they once sang are now cancelled. Nobody like them writes songs anymore. Well, nobody that would get a recording contract. We called them lazy after they had to make a humiliatingly necessary calculation that to provide for their family, maybe even give their loved ones a holiday from their shithole neighbourhood, it was better to not work and claim benefits instead. When they tried to tell us how much they were hurting, how they felt overlooked, using the only words that they had, we called them racist. They didn't get the latest memo from the overpaid London PR consultant about what language was acceptable and which viewpoint was allowed to be held, how to work the ever-changing system to fit in. Of course, they're slow learners, and they also don't have protected status. They're monsters. So they tried at the ballot box to change things. 3 times they voted Conservative because they promised to cut immigration. They backed Brexit because that would put them first for a change. They saw that those in charge who hadn't been listening for decades were finally made to listen. And oh, did they listen. They then did everything in their power to bully and to shame, to silence the voices of those men, to frame them as a threat, to intimidate them and censor them. And so day after day, night after night, they watched their towns change irreparably. They watched people from other countries being given houses and doctor's appointments, so surely it must be their turn next. Surely. These other people were showered with the loving glow of just being wanted. Yes, wanted. But also actively cheered for. Refugees welcome. Black Lives Matter. Who are these people? They didn't get a chance to get to know them because those people didn't learn English. They couldn't find them at the pub, but it must be their fault because they didn't welcome them enough. They didn't understand them enough. That's right, it's because they must be racist. They then saw members of those communities complain still and witnessed superhuman efforts made by people in power to listen to them. And yet, Some of them still riot when they don't get their own way. Some of them commit crimes, but when they do, it's not their fault. They just need to be better understood. Those people have been through things that none of us can relate to. They're disenfranchised. They have mental health issues. And it's probably your fault, you lazy, white racist. That, dear friends, that is the story of working class England. And I hope you enjoyed it. You know, some might call it a lived experience, but for those in it, it's an experience barely worth living.
For years, people have been told that Britain's main problem is the amount of privilege certain groups supposedly enjoy. Alex Phillips turns that story completely upside down, and that's exactly why her speech lands with such force. What she describes is not privilege at all, it is loss. She speaks about the men who once formed the foundation of Britain, men without fancy qualifications or comfortable office jobs, but men who built the country with their hands. They made things, repaired things, defended the nation, and held local communities together. Miners, soldiers, factory workers, drivers. Men who never asked for praise, only respect and self-worth. And then, almost without notice, that dignity was taken from them. Industries were closed, the armed forces were reduced, factories vanished, and instead of creating new opportunities to replace those jobs, the system brought in cheaper labour and told its own people to adjust or step aside. When many of them couldn't adjust, no real effort was made to help them start again. They were pushed onto benefits and then ridiculed for relying on them. This is the part many people would rather not confront. Because when you take away a man's ability to provide, when pride is replaced with forms, rules and handouts, you don't just remove a wage. You damage identity. You drain families of purpose. You lock entire generations into struggle. When these people tried to speak out, they were told their humour was unacceptable, their traditions were shameful, and their opinions were a danger. Everything they were once respected for was suddenly labelled backward, stupid, or racist. They were never coached on how to speak the right way. They were never given the approved language. They were never invited into the conversation. So they turned to the one place where they still felt heard, the ballot box. They voted Conservative. They supported Brexit. Not out of malice or hatred, but because for the first time in many years, someone acted like they were listening. And what followed? They were attacked. Their votes were described as a danger to democracy itself. Their concerns were waved away and labelled as prejudice. Their anger was treated as something abnormal or unhealthy. At the same time, Alex Phillips highlights a double standard that many people refuse to acknowledge. Other groups are encouraged to speak openly about their lived experiences. They are listened to. They receive funding, exposure, and protection. Riots are explained away. Crime is put into context. Failure is excused as the result of past trauma. But when working-class England is hurting, the message is very different. They are told the blame lies with them. They switch on the television and no longer see people like themselves. They walk through towns that feel unfamiliar. They are instructed to celebrate constant change while receiving nothing in return. And when they finally ask, "What about us?" they are treated like villains. That is why this speech matters. You don't need to agree with every line to understand the truth at its centre. A nation that refuses to recognise the suffering of its own people will eventually push them away. Alex Phillips is not offering a comforting story. She is delivering an uncomfortable one.